Hello friends, my name is Akash Srivastav and I welcome you all to yet another episode of Bricks of the Wall. Like we promised you all in a pilot episode that Bricks of the Wall as podcast will reach out to all those who are contributing towards building a strong, innovative and inclusive nation. Keeping our words, we are presenting you a story of yet another entrepreneur whose company has not just broken a taboo but has been the flag bearer of hemp revolution in India. Hemp, often regarded as super crop for its wide range of uses, has been the victim of ill-conceived notion due to its cousin crop, that is marijuana, aka weed, and popularly known as ganja. Friends, in this episode, we will try to clear out the ill-conceived notion around hemp, its significance, and how with a proper research and pilot studies, it can be very well used for its industrial and medical purposes. We will also discuss the importance of Bombay Hemp Company, which has consistently revolutionized the hemp industry in India. Like our first episode, I promise you all that this interactive session is going to be an informative, interesting, and will illustrate the journey of few college friends who later became the co-founders of Bombay Hemp Company. Friends, let me introduce you all with the guest on our second episode of Bricks of the Wall, Mr. Sumit Shah, who is the co-founder and director of Bombay Hemp Company Private Limited. Friends, let's hear him out for his interesting journey of massive learning and traversing unexplored paths. Thank you. Hi Sumit, good morning and welcome to Bricks of the Wall. I would like to know from you, like, how's been life since 2013? You started your entrepreneurship journey and you became the co-founder of Boheco, the only company then which was dealing with hemp, the super crop. So would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about like how's been your journey and what has changed and what has transformed in your life?
Sure. So since 2013, I think the journey has been just learning because we started this venture right out of college. So it's just learning about the crop, learning how business takes place, learning how policy moves in India. And every day we learn something new. We have a new challenge, so we try and figure that out. We're learning to have patience, how to deal with the government, learning how to fight or figure difficult problems out. So I think, yeah, if you ask me this question in terms of what has life been since 2013, it's been a massive learning journey.
Yeah. So Sumit, as we all know that Boheco deals with hemp, which when in 2013 you guys started, must be a sort of a taboo in the society when you have approached the government and even to the farmers to educate them and about the qualities and the aspects of hemp which it possesses as a crop. So tell us a little bit about that challenges which you faced at that time, like while dealing with government, administration, how it was like when you tried to convince them that you want to work towards the like industrialization of this crop and you want to work in this business. So how it was then?
Correct. So it all depends on which part of the government you're speaking to, and it's about what proposition you're taking to them. So for us, one thing we realized is that, like, again, the larger audience some people need to learn about cannabis. Some people need to first unlearn about cannabis. There is a ill-conceived notion that cannabis is only a drug. So to dispel that notion, what we usually do is whenever we go for any government meeting, we take a few products with us. So we take a brick, we take your oils, we take your powders, we take some clothes along with us, and we say that this is what cannabis means to us and not the narcotic aspect. And that is something which helps dispel that thought in even the bureaucrat's mind or whoever we are speaking to, that yeah, okay, fine, this can be a legitimate business, that this can make legitimate everyday to use products, and it's not something which people will use on a recreational or which has their abuse potential to it. So at least when we work with the government, that is one of our primary modes of trying to convince them. There were a large number of bureaucrats who come from, say, the mountainous regions, or who in their perhaps early days have seen cannabis being used in its cultural form, in its native form. So they understand the significance of the crop. They understand that this crop has a lot more potential, and they are also the guys who are willing to support it because they understand the repercussions of that on the farmer, on the rural livelihood and the rural economy. So in our interactions when we kicked things off in Uttarakhand, we came across some very senior bureaucrats who have lived in the mountains and who've grown up seeing these crops. So that is when they realize that this is something which can be legitimized. This is something which can be put into a normal process, and that will allow the farmers to earn some money. That will allow some industries to come up in that area. So simultaneously, one of the most important approaches is to work with the government, is to work with science. Like you tell them that allow me to do research, and I will give you proof that this is something which is beyond abuse. I'm growing a crop which is low narcotic. I'm growing a crop which will give farmers a great income. So only once you've run your pilot studies, only once you have your test reports from government certified labs, is when you have the opportunity to present it to the government, and then the government will not be able to question you, because you are going in with hard evidence, you're going in with hard facts. So that's how and throughout our journey, that's the notion, and that's the modus operandi as such, where the idea would be to educate everyone, to convince them in the right manner, saying that this has immense benefits, and this is how you can go about it. And that's how we've achieved whatever success we have so far.
Yeah, right, Sumit. As you perfectly said, that education is really important when you work in any of the sector. It's really important to entertaining drug. But what you guys are dealing with is something which is completely different. It's a hemp. It's industrial. It is used for the
Correct.
industrialization. So how it is different from weed and marijuana?
Sounds good. So just let's take a different analogy. Let's take the cat family. We have a house cat, we have a leopard, we have a jaguar, we have a lion. Everyone belongs to the same family, but everyone has different features, characteristics. They stay in different areas altogether, and they are adapted accordingly. So similarly with the cannabis crop, right? You have cannabis that grows almost throughout India, but every type of plant will be different. The characteristics will be different. Their chemical characteristics, their physical characteristics will be different. Therefore, the crop that we are focusing on is a crop which has 0.3% THC. THC is tetrahydrocannabinoid. It's a psychoactive substance which is found abundantly in a recreational cannabis crop. Whereas the crop that we are growing in for the purpose of fiber, for the purpose of food, or even for the purpose of medicine, has low THC and has higher other compounds. So the focus would be, then we have a different fiber type crop. We have a seed type variety, and then we have a CBD type variety, which essentially would be used for making medication and other products like that. So for us, that is the core focus of the company, where our idea is that not to grow something which has larger abuse potential. Minute it has less abuse potential, minute it is below 0.3% THC, any farmer with a farmland in say Uttarakhand can cultivate this at a large scale. So that gives us the ability to work with a larger number of people. That gives us the ability to impact a larger number of people, and also get in that much revenue, or get that much crop from them and make end product. So that's the focus of the company. Similarly, we realize that in India there's no standardization. So for example, tomorrow if you plant a basmati rice, you know that you will get a crop which is say a 3-foot crop. It'll harvest, it'll mature in like say 3 months or 4 months. Whereas with hemp, even if you grow from the same batch of seeds, you will get one crop which is like say 6 feet, one crop which is say 8 feet, one crop which is say 5 feet. So that standardization is not there, and that is one of the reasons why the cannabis industry in India currently is stagnating a bit. So that's where like Bombay and Company is doing research along with CSIR NVRI, which is National Botanical Research Institute in Lucknow, where we are developing a low THC seed for India. So that is something which once it comes out into market, we'll be able to distribute it to a large number of farmers and they can grow it without any problem. Because tomorrow, if during testing the crop turns out to be higher THC, that poses a illegal issue for the farmers then. So just to ensure that the farmers are also safe and then it's incentivized for them to grow as well. This kind of research is very important.
Okay. So Sumit, as you mentioned that Boheco is putting a lot of efforts in the research and development work. So I really want to know, like, what are the aspects and in the future which which you guys are planning to present in the market? Like, as we all know that you guys are already working in the textile sector, food, medicines, which you're using. But in the future, like, what you guys are aspiring as Boheco?
So one thing which is very important is to have legitimate clinical trials of our cannabis-based medicines. You know, cannabis-based medicines in India are under the Ayush purview. We bring them under because there are close to 104 Ayurvedic formulations with bhang in it. Now, bhang leaves were a very important ingredient for preparation, right from digestion to sexual vitality, to pain, to sleep. Multiple formulations are available. Now, what we are doing is that we are moving these traditional formulations into a more proprietary and a more a modern format, say based on extracts or based on these tinctures. And what we are looking at doing is running clinical trials to prove modern efficacy and modern to bring it at par to modern sciences. Because the minute you've done a clinical trial of a certain product with a sizable audience, it becomes enough empirical evidence for all the doctors to start prescribing it. Again, right? Like there is a lot of education that is needed on the doctors front as well for them, because it's not part of the syllabus. It's something which is not very openly spoken about. So how will you convince a doctor that, okay, fine, this medicine is safe, this medicine works? For a doctor, clinical trial is the gold standard. So that's some important research that we are doing. We have a partnership with Tata Memorial Hospital in Bombay, where we are doing studies on breast cancer patients. We are also working with NIA, that's the National Institute of Ayurveda in Jaipur, where we are running multiple clinical trials for skin health, for arthritis pain, for digestive health, and other products like that.
Okay. So Sumit, I want to know, like, since you guys have started working with the industrialists and you presented your stuff in the market, your products. So what is your observation, like how the society here like takes such these products from hemp, and how they like is there a positive approach from the industry and from the market, from the customer, like towards the products of hemp? And or
Absolutely. I think there is a large section of the society which is learned, which has traveled abroad and which has seen products in the market, right?
okay.
There is enough awareness about cannabis for good uses and bad uses.
Yeah.
So people do recognize and understand that, okay, fine, there can be a legitimate product out of it. Some people are confused about the pathway. Some people are unsure about the legitimacy of the product, or in terms of legitimacy of the how do I get it, and will I get caught, and will I be able to fly with it? So that is where we come in and we try and dispel these notions, and we clarify the details for them in terms of how they can go about using these products, consuming these products, and purchasing these products.
Okay.
So the way we see it is that traction will only going to increase as the product range also increases. People will be more aware about it. It helps people word of mouth, because minute a person has a good experience with it, you're bound to talk about it. So word of mouth helps, and that brings a great organic traction to us.
Okay, so Sumit, as we all know that India is one of the largest producer of the cannabis plant. Okay, and it's been here like since ages. Okay, but still, like as we like while doing the homework for this interview, I learned that worldwide, a lot of countries are using hemp products for various uses. Like there is China, then there is Germany, there is Italy, there is Romania, who are using hemp products for various aspects, in various aspects. So what do you think, like while working in the hemp industry, you observed that why India took so long to recognize the qualities and the aspects of hemp where it can provide so many good benefits in the society?
Correct. So, for example, the European nations, they never banned hemp. They banned recreational cannabis. They banned high THC cannabis, but they always had continuous cultivation, even though in very small quantities, of cannabis over there. So what used to happen is that they have seeds and they have multiple varieties of seeds which are running for, say, the past 20, 30 years, which are already low in THC. So tomorrow, if they need to scale up production, they already have a good database of products of seeds which they can take forward to market. Whereas India did not have that background. In 1986, minute we got the NDPS Act, there was sort of a blanket ban on this. There wasn't as much research conducted. There wasn't as much awareness about it. Similarly, China, for example, they recognize that hemp as a crop will grow very well in certain provinces. They have an extreme north province called Heilongjiang. So that is one province where it's extremely cold, like it goes to -30 in the winters, and it's full of snow. And in the summers, it goes to again plus 30, 35 over there. So it's in the interiors, but they have a climatic condition which is suitable for hemp. So that is where they started their hemp growing programs. There's another province called Yunnan province, which is actually adjoining Arunachal Pradesh, which has a lot of hemp cultivation happening over there. Again, it is a hilly area. The government recognized that a crop like hemp can grow well over there. The climate is suitable because it's a hilly area. The people may not be able to grow a lot of other crops. Hemp is a crop which is fairly well suited for that, and the farmers get a fair remuneration for that. So the government of China actually invested a lot of money. The People's Republic of China, the army of the PLA army, got together and they started picking up hemp products. So they use hemp in their socks. They use hemp fiber in their clothing, especially when the Chinese soldiers are fighting anywhere in the tropical regions. They always have a cotton hemp and cotton blend because that is better for from a hypoallergenic and from an antiseptic perspective. So that's where I believe that perhaps the Indian government has faltered and we have not been able to put as much money in research because that's the very first step in promoting such an industry.
So what do you think, like Indian industries, like even in the army, are they like getting ready to use hemp products like in near future?
So that's the thing, right? Like I feel in India, what will happen is that we'll leapfrog. Globally, there's already research conducted, right? So you don't need to start from zero. You need to adapt what is already happening abroad into the Indian context, and you can actually move faster than what you will have because they would be going from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100. We don't need to go from 0 to 1. We just need to understand how they're going about it and copy the same for ourselves. So I feel that there definitely in the next 5 years there will be a point of time where the Indian industry will pick up. We'll have a lot more larger and well-established players who will come into this industry, who will take this product up and take it to the next level. So that will be the turning point for this industry, where we'll have larger players, perhaps the Indian military. We'll have the Indian government itself recognize the product and help promote this to the next level.
Okay. So Sumit, I want to mention here that I guess little bit of progress has been made because in 2015, Uttarakhand legalized the recreational use of marijuana in their state, and also recently, even the CEO of Patanjali said that we are doing research and development work towards the use of marijuana and hemp also. And recently, I read that even one of the senior minister in Madhya Pradesh also said that we are considering to legalize the recreational use of marijuana in their state. So what do you think, like in near future, like we can expect something from the center government that they will present some like amendments in the law where you guys can expect some revolution in the hemp industry where they can allow?
So it's not a central subject, it's actually a state subject. So multiple state departments come into play, and the different states have different laws. That's why, for example, you can have legal bhang shops in, say, Rajasthan, but you can't have that same thing in Maharashtra, because every state has a different excise law. Every state has a different purview towards certain aspects, and it a lot depends on culturally and historically where the state is coming from. Like Orissa, UP, MP, Rajasthan have always been a bhang consuming belt. So, they are used to the notion of cannabis. They understand that there's a massive cultural and a religious significance to it. There are people who consume it for multiple purposes, and there are already Ayurvedic shops who make products from it. So they are the first people who will be a lot more open to it, because they already have some context to it. Whereas if you see states like some of the southern states, or even Maharashtra or Gujarat, bhang is a fairly alien concept to us. We've read about it, we've seen it, but it's not something which is there in terms of policy or in terms of day-to-day activities or consumption. So I think it is due in the future that in the next couple of years, we do see scope for having a legitimate business come through, a lot of regulatory changes come through. So yeah, it's a matter of time in terms of how you convince the state, which state sees this as an important aspect to take forward. And they promote this for their state and for the farmers.
So, Sumit, let's get back to Boheco. Like, it's run by 7 co-founders. Like, I want to know like how it works. Like, there are 7 co-founders, which is very rare part in the society. Like, I have like rarely seen like any company which is run by 7 co-founders. So, how did that pan out? Like, when you started, like who initiated, who pitched this idea? Like, we'll work in the
So
industry of
Infosys was one of the companies which
yeah.
was started by 7 co-founders, and they've done phenomenally well.
Yeah.
So at least for us, we because we were all from the same college, we realized that there is a certain friendship and a history with us. We knew each other primarily because we worked on this social project in college under Enactus or SIFE, that it was called earlier, where it was a rural electrification project. So we first were collecting funds from everyone and various means, and those funds were deployed to make solar lanterns, which were distributed in places which were not on the grid. So when we were doing that, all the primary co-founders came together, and that's when we interacted a lot more. We traveled to the absolute rural parts of India to understand and to see firsthand what are the challenges, what issues are they facing, and what are the opportunity over there. Around the same time, one of my co-founders, he was with us, and he is an Australian national. So Jahan went to Australia, where he visited this town called Margaret River, and that place grows 2 crops only. It's a fairly prosperous town, which grows wine. I mean, which grows grapes for wine, and then they grow hemp for fiber. They grow hemp for seeds. They grow hemp for their surfboards, and they have multiple allied industries related to the crop. So from that aspect, that's something which sparked sparked a moment in a light bulb in his head, and he brought that idea back to us, saying that if there is a legitimate industry at that time in Australia, in Canada was just opening up at that time, why not explore such a thing in India? Because India has great climatic conditions. India has traditionally grown, and a lot of cultivated cannabis is always available in India. So why not try and organize this industry and legitimize it in a way which will enable us to uh, bring to market different set of products which are not there. So that was the birth, and that was the thought process which initiated Bombay Hemp Company. And when we realized that this is something which we have to do full time, because it's a serious thing. No one's going to take us seriously. We were just out of college, 21, 22. Imagine walking into a government office quite young, trying to say that I want to grow cannabis. Whichever officer is going to look at you with a crooked eye, saying that, okay, fine, no, you are a young guy. I'm not sure what you are looking at. How will you go about it? there's lack of credibility or lack of legitimacy to us. So that's when we decided that, if you have to do this, you have to do this full time. So we established a company, a private limited company. We started talking to governments. We started, getting in touch with a lot more people. Thankfully, along the way, we got in touch and we got a lot of support from our partners, the Tata Trusts, and so that helped legitimize our entire business, and that gave us an impetus that yes, these guys are not, say, junkies who are just looking at cultivating cannabis, but they want to have a legitimate business out of this.
Okay. So Sumit, tell us about your first experience, like when you produced something out of hemp. Like how was that experience where the production happened, and what was the product which you like made out of hemp?
So I think one of the first products that we made out of hemp was in hemp textile. We made hemp fabrics, which were hand woven. So this was something which was manufactured in Uttarakhand. We were working with a women's help group over there, where we developed a range of hemp fabrics. So it was quite exciting because again, these women were used to working with wool and pashmina and stuff like that, and hemp was always something native to them, but they use it for making, say, ropes for cattle tying, or ropes for making their khatiyas or charpois and stuff like that. So they've never seen a refined use of that. And when you processed it a lot further, you blended it with cotton, it became a great fabric for, and that is what was quite exciting for them, because for them it was a surprise that a crop which they've been seeing throughout their life and right from childhood, they're seeing a very different product from it, and that was quite an exciting part for us.
Okay, so there is one actually notion that when we visit towards Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand, then we see a lot of cultivation of cannabis plants. But because you're working in this industry, you're working with this crop, you are very well aware, like which are the regions in India which are very eco-friendly for the cultivation of cannabis. So would you like to shed some light on that? Like which are the regions where you guys are working with farmers?
So we are primarily working in Uttarakhand.
Okay.
But again, as I mentioned earlier, right, like different regions in India will support different types of crop.
Okay.
So for example, if I want to grow a fiber variety, I will require a flat land, because that's where I can achieve, larger scale, I can achieve a better efficiency, and cultivation also becomes easier for me. I can, use machines and have, acres of cultivation. Whereas if I'm growing it for, say, the seed purposes, then I can grow it in Uttarakhand and Himachal, where the process will be a lot more manual, but the return for the farmers also will be higher. So, we are working in Uttarakhand, we are working in Uttar Pradesh, where both the places we have farmland, where we are cultivating it with the same purpose, that different types of crops for a different end purpose will be cultivated in different areas, and that way it's beneficial to most of the farmers around.
Okay. So Sumit, while doing the homework for this interview, I saw one of the speeches of Yash Kotak, one of the other co-founder of Boheco, in which he said that Boheco is trying to make the agriculture sector sexier comparatively to earlier days. So, and how Boheco is converting, making agriculture sector more sexier and more dynamic.
Okay. So, in the modern age, very few new crops have been introduced into the system. Okay. So there have been a lot of new techniques which come about. Like we in Gujarat, they are using a lot of Israeli techniques for water saving, for having better cultivation of multiple crops. But no new crop as such has been introduced into the system. And that also an industrial crop which has which has an uptake from multiple industries. So hemp, the food industry will take the hemp produce, the textile industry will take the hemp produce, the pharmaceutical industry will take the hemp produce. So that is where we believe that hemp has the potential to service a lot of industries, and therefore it has a potential to be cultivated in large acreage. Minute you start cultivating it in large acreages, the potential that it has is a lot more. Like, so as we said, right, like because there are multiple varieties of hemp, say for example in MP or UP, I can grow acres and acres of land which will service only textile factories and textile mills. Whereas if I want for, say, pharmaceutical purposes, I can grow it in the mountains, which will service the pharmaceutical units which are there in, say, Haridwar or in, Bandi or some place like that. So from that perspective, we believe that hemp has that potential. It also has a great story behind it. It attracts a lot of attention. So in a way, it's good. It's good introduction that people can say that people can be made aware that, what, agriculture is a legit profession. We look down, a lot of times we look down upon the farmers, saying it's, because it's a lot of hard work. It may not be as profitable as perhaps other professions, but it is a very important profession. So, as we go ahead, it's important for more and more youngsters to come into this space, for us to learn about, newer technologies which are going all across the world and bring that to the Indian farmlands, because that's the only way we'll be able to survive the next 10 to 20 years. We believe that the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see a massive shift in climate. We're going to see a massive change in the weather pattern, in our rainfall pattern, and the first and foremost and the largest impact of this is going to come onto agriculture, because they are the most dependent on this. So as more people who are investing time, money and effort into the space, that will ensure better legitimacy of the better improvement of the space. It will ensure advancement of the space, and will also ensure, say, food security for the country. That will also ensure that the lowest level of the section which is the highest occupation generator will have an occupation, will survive, and which will actually thrive.
Yeah. As you rightly said, that agriculture is one of the very important sector in our country. So what do you think, like this sector provides employment and involvement of more than 50% of the population in our country, but still its economic contribution is bit low as compared to the involvement of the population. So what do you think, like the coming generation, like how can we like make the agriculture sector, and even the government and administration can make agriculture sector more dynamic to attract youngsters who can join the agriculture sector and like do research work and make some new inventions and make it more profitable for the country and in the society?
So I think it's about opportunity, right? It's about recognizing the opportunity. So there is hard work everywhere. Like if you're working in the IT sector also, it's hours and hours in front of the screen. Perhaps you're just like, going at it. Whereas working in agriculture is a different type of hard work. Like you have to perhaps say sweat it out in the fields. You have to, withstand rain. You have to withstand winter. But again, that's where we believe that the upcoming generation, and we've spoken to a lot of people who have who are working in this space and who are coming up in the space, and they recognize the same thing, right? Because we come from a space where we have access to the internet. We come from a space where we have understanding of what other technologies are being implemented across the world. We have that opportunity to implement that same in India and create a great value proposition, because then you're not only having great technology, but you also have a technology which is producing a great product. And the good thing about agriculture is it's producing food which is always in demand. Like you are never going to not have demand for food. You may have a drop in price, but it's not as if it's not going to be sold. So as long as you're selling the right kind of product at the right quality, it's a product which will always be picked up by the consumer. So
Sumit, tell us about as last year was a major hit for like all of us. Like the pandemic period was really tough for each and every one of us. So how it affected your business, like the cultivation of hemp and the industrialization of, and in the market also, how it affected your business?
So different departments were facing different issues. Of course, operations, supply chain took the biggest hit. Movement of goods were a problem. Trying to dispatch goods to the customer was also an issue. A lot of our shops, retail shops, where we used to stock our products, were shut down because of the pandemic. So of course, we saw a drop in revenue. but over a period of time that has come back up, and we hit pre-COVID levels last year itself. And we realized that it gave us a way of looking at business. It also was a forced experiment, so to say, in terms of how can we adopt flexi working. It's something which is almost all corporates across the world are now looking at it in a serious manner. It's something which is beneficial to the employees as well as the corporate house. And we believe that, like, at a certain point, there was like everyone was in the same boat, right? Like, we had to make the best of what we could. So we tried using that time to clean up our internal books. We tried using that time to help train the employees better. We tried using that time to set better processes. And now that things are opening up, now that again we are back to normal, or sort of, at least, we feel that we are a lot more stronger. We are a lot more agile. We feel a lot more confident on taking on more challenges because we've dealt with something, we've overcome that, and now we are better prepared to take things up.
So, Sumit, one thing I want to hear from you for all those who will watch this video is that people who use this cannabis plant for as an entertaining drug, and they just think that this is for this purpose only, and there is no other purpose of cannabis plant. Okay, so because you have worked in the industry from so long, like it's been like 8 years, 7 to 8 years, you have been working with cannabis plant. Okay, you know it very well, better than us. Okay, so I want to mention here that in 2019 there was a research from AIMS which concluded that more than 70% of the population in India are using cannabis as an entertaining drug. So I want to hear it from you, like your message to those youngsters. It does not include just youngsters, but also people who are like above 60, 70-year old, even 55-year old. Okay, even they are using it as an entertaining drug. So what is your message to them? Like, despite of the fact that they know that it's going to hurt them, their health wise, mentally also is going to affect them. So what is your message? Like, because you have explored this plant more than us, so what have you concluded, like, while working?
So at least my take on this is that anything in excess is harmful.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough research done to empirically conclude that consumption of cannabis will lead to X, Y, and Z. Just to take, for example, consumption of cigarettes and alcohol is being researched since the past 20 or 30 years. So we are very well aware of the repercussions of it in long-term basis. So, for example, if someone started drinking, and there have been long-term studies in terms of consumption of alcohol, consumption of cigarettes, that have lasted for like generations, right? And they have understood that, okay, fine, maybe long-term effects of this would be X, Y, and Z. Whereas cannabis has not been studied. So today, no one can conclusively tell you that consumption of cannabis on a long-term basis, excessive or one time, will lead to X, Y, and Z. There are theories, there are smaller research groups that have been done, but there's never taken place a long-term study globally, because the industry itself is so new. There has never been legally the opportunity to procure material and conduct a study was only few. Now it's only in the past 5 years that US and Canada both have had legitimate industries, which gives opportunity for researchers over there to conduct studies. So at least what my personal viewpoint is that, again, there are forms in which you can consume something. Smoking as a habit itself is injurious to health, not only cannabis, but cigarettes or hookah or whatever else. So the way I see it is every person will react differently to cannabis. So if you feel that you're comfortable with it and you're sufficing with it, then that's fine. As a company, we feel that there is still time for us to look at recreational cannabis in India. It's still a far push, because again, from a government perspective, they require a lot of understanding. They are required to understand the abuse potential. And for us, we believe that at least if we get the product into the medical space, it will be at least it'll benefit the people who need it the most. There are people who would be perhaps suffering from cancer, or people who cannabis can be very effective for, perhaps in anxiety or in epilepsy. And this can be perhaps a life-saving product for them. So for us, our focus is purely on that and not on the other aspects of the plant.
Okay. So as you mentioned that the product which you guys are working on, hemp, can have a very like enduring effect on body if it is rightly used. Okay. So while knowing these facts, what do you think that why still states are very much reluctant, like in allowing the industry, allowing the startups to use it broadly in a market? Why do you think like it has existed for so long? That reluctance towards cannabis plant.
Uh,
Maybe it is because of the research work.
so there's this proverb, right? Who's going to bell the cat?
Yeah.
Like, who at the end of the day, you need someone, like you need a politician and you need a bureaucrat who will be like, okay, I will take the risk and I will sign on that paper. Because again, you have to realize few things with bureaucrats, right? Like they are in a certain position for 3 to 5 years, then they are going to move on. So for them, if they to take such a large step, such an important step, it can work two ways. It can either work out great for them, or there could be a backlash which will create an issue. So from that perspective, we feel that there's a fair bit of hesitancy because there's lack of awareness. There's a lack of initiative also from their end. But again, that being said, that is changing. There are a few states which have taken that initiative. There are a few states which are working on policies. So we do hope to see that within this year, there is a change in policy which will enable us to bring a different product to market, which will enable us to cultivate, which will enable us to process better.
Okay. So Sumit, tell us something about like how's been the reaction from farmers, because they have been directly involved with the cultivation of cannabis plants and they know like the strength of this crop, like how it can be very well used if it is rightly like processed in the market. So because you guys have directly worked with the farmers, so what has been their reactions, like what you guys have learned from them, like because they know that there's been reluctance between the administration and the politicians in the society because they haven't let industrialists use it in the market. So what do they feel like? Are they frustrated? Do they feel that kind of frustration because because administration does not let them use these crops?
So to be honest, most of the farmers we speak to, they are open to cultivating. They are looking forward to cultivate it also. Again, for them, the legal aspect is something which they are really concerned about, because at the end of the day, it's their land. So they don't want anything to happen to that. So for them, that is the first priority, saying, if I grow it, will I get into trouble with the law? If what are the rules and regulations around it? And minute you make them understand that, this is the process, we'll get you the right kind of seeds, they're more than happy to come on board, because traditionally they know hemp grows easily. Hemp, they've seen hemp being cultivated, they've seen hemp grow naturally. So they understand how much effort to reward is there. A lot of other crops which grow in the mountain require a lot of effort. You need to weed it properly, you need to plant it properly, perhaps you need to put a lot more nutrients. Whereas with hemp, it grows easily. So the effort is less and you get a similar reward as per other crops. So for them, that is the pure benefit that they are also looking at.
Cool. So Sumit, it's been 8 years, I guess you guys are working on Boheco. So how's been your entrepreneurship journey like as an entrepreneur? Like now what you have learned, because now like you can be regarded as one of the like someone who has matured as an entrepreneur. So what have you learned like for all those who have just started their work and their entrepreneurship journey in the society? So what could be your message to them?
I think one of the strongest messages I can send across is that be open and be flexible to learn, and like that will help you move a lot faster. Because in every startup there are going to be challenges. If you're in a startup, you are bound to face challenges. There are going to be lack of resources. There's going to be funding issues. There are going to be people management issues. So as long as an entrepreneur you're willing to learn and you're open to the fact that you're willing to change, that will go a long way in ensuring that you succeed in whatever venture you're doing.
Okay, cool. So on that note, I would just like to ask you last question, Sumit. Okay, is that what is your message to the consumers of the Boheco products? Like, what are you going to like present in the market like in future, and the investors even? Okay, like what is your message to the investors as a like the co-founder of Boheco?
Yeah, so I think the next line of products that we are focusing on is an absolute low THC product for particularly for anxiety and for say epilepsy and stuff like that. So that is going to be a lot more on the medical lines. We are also launching a few products for on the cosmetic side, so some creams and some serums that we are working on. And at least for the consumers, we hope to develop a range of products which add great value to your life, which enhance your livelihood and make it a lot more healthy. So for us, our focus is on developing value added products which will make a person's life healthy. Looking forward to that.
Cool. So thank you so very much, Sumit, for like participating in the Bricks of the Wall. Okay. And on that note, I would like to conclude our interactive session here. Hope you had a good time.
No problem, Akash.
Thanks
Thank
a lot.
you.